Very happy Doctors Day, and I hope this day is another beginning in the direction of improving the doctor-patient relationship which is the need of the hour. My topic today is on doctors in the society, medical professionalism and changing lives. A professional is somebody who is certified by a professional body as to belonging to a specific profession because that person has completed a specific exam. So in this case, like in the medical profession, earlier completing the MBBS degree was enough and it qualified us to be called a medical professional. And in the old times, straight after MBBS, the doctor was almost like a king in the society. Everyone respected the doctor. His word was respected. There was no room for any doubt. And the doctors used to take every word that the patients would take every word for the doctor. However, now this kind of deference and respect is almost dead from the society. So now, as in keeping with the times, this is a Wikipedia dictionary definition. A professional needs to have not just expert and specialized knowledge, which of course is necessary, but also excellent practical and or literary skills as per the profession that the person is involved in. High quality products, services, high standard of professional ethics. Ethics has already been talked about, and you cannot be called a professional unless you maintain these professional ethics. Also, the professional should be motivated with a desire to do their job very well and have appropriate relationships with colleagues. As far as medical professionalism goes, knowledge and skills is of course the key and will always remain the key. But along with that, we also need to provide a complete package of high quality products and services which goes beyond our medical knowledge and skills as the patients want a complete overall good experience. So the old paradigm was that the doctors studied long and hard. The society recognized this fact that they study long and hard and they gave up their early earnings, and in return for this, they got respect from the society as well as financial reward. Today, some doctors still earn very well, but there is an increasing culture of judgment and blame by the society, not just for doctors, but for all professionals. And medical profession, as we all know, is now a part of service industry, though we don't yet have service tax, but it is only a matter of time that we may be part of the service tax net also. And even though nobody respects the doctors like they used to as God, but still we do expect some godly qualities from a doctor, that they should have a tremendous amount of patience and that they should always value the patient above their own life. So today the society wants that the doctors should always strive for excellence and very high quality. Medical profession is a profession where failure is just not acceptable. You can't just say, sorry, I failed and I could not do it, because everybody wants success in this profession. Doctors are expected to carry on a socialist responsibility in what has largely become a capitalist society, but medical profession is the last pillar where we are expected still to carry on with those charity traditions. And above all this, there is a daily threat of complaints, litigation, and in our country, violence that can happen anytime, as Mr. Prem Prakash had also alluded to. And it is not just people around us who are changing, we ourselves are changing. Doctors also want a work-life balance today. Our financial requirements have also increased as per the professionals all around us. And so we obviously aren't untouched by the changes happening around us. In the earlier times, words like customers, service, competition were considered to be dirty words in the medical profession. We never really talked in these terms. It was considered unmedical or not proper ethics to be talking about these things. But today, with the more and more corporate hospitals opening up, these are part of daily jargon of many doctors, like balance sheets, daily turnover, footfall in the OPD, and in many corporate hospitals, you just cannot escape this culture because everyone around talks the same language. So in this changing society, how do we change ourselves? It has become imperative for us now to learn business and practice management along with our clinical knowledge, and communication, which is becoming increasingly important with the demanding patients, as well as patient handling skills. And all this should happen simultaneously with our clinical training, because clinical training alone is probably not enough to survive and flourish in the society today. So we need to learn beyond medicine when we manage our patients, and beyond managing patients when we manage our practices. Dealing with patients is one thing that is becoming increasingly difficult, but this is what we have to do day in and day out. So we have to learn this art. Patients today want a 5-star, quick, one-stop service. Nobody wants to wait. Nobody has the time to wait, and they can become easily dissatisfied and volatile. Their demands and expectations have exploded, so we have to tune ourselves to these changes. And at the same time, remember that in India, we always have to deal with diverse expectations. On the one hand, we have extremely rich, wealthy corporate hospitals and patients who can afford these kind of 5-star luxuries. But we cannot forget that the majority of our patients will still remain like this, and we have to devise methods so that we can cater to these two kinds of diverse populations. And we cannot escape the fact that medical profession does have a poor image today, and this is the image with which we start working. So it is up to us, the medical profession as a whole, that we start building our image and increase the positive news that comes out about the medical profession, so that we can let the public know about the good work that we do, as Mr. Premprakash also alluded. This is the kind of image that the doctors have today, and it is up to us to change it and to tell them that this is not the complete reality. For the increased expectations, it has become imperative to design big teams. Today, a doctor cannot just sit with a table and a chair and run a one-man show in clinical practice. Because of the heightened expectations, we need to devise and invest in good quality staff which can handle some of these expectations. So use your staff well, make them assist patients at various steps and in handling insurance papers, etc. Build a good team and learn to delegate your work so that no patient will be dissatisfied because they will not get enough time. However, along with all these changes, our medical training is something we need to look at. It still remains old-fashioned, probably will take some time before these changes are incorporated. Some medical colleges have already incorporated lectures on medical ethics and communications, etc. It is just starting, and gradually this will spread all over the country. We need to reorient our medical education to the changing perceptions and avoid language that we have been taught which implies skepticism or somehow treats the patient as inferior, like patient believes or patient denies. And especially in India, because the culture of medical colleges and the private practices is vastly different, it will be a good idea if the medical college students can also observe the private practices so that they can inculcate these values early on. Often physicians complain that they do not have enough time to communicate with the patients, the kind of communication that the patients want. So this time barrier to communication can be managed by using services of paramedical staff and counselors, which are now becoming increasingly important. Use your paramedical staff to do routine explanations for the patient, and if the patient wants repeated explanations, use these paramedical staff and the services of counselors. But the patient should not get the impression that none in the medical staff has any time to explain their doubts. So today a doctor needs to wear many hats. You of course first and foremost have to be a clinician with polished medical skills, but also an academician because the technology is changing all the time. So you need to be a constant learner to keep up with this technology. You also have to be a manager who can understand the business aspects of running a profitable clinic. A CEO who understands how to motivate the staff and lead the other people by example. A financial expert who can manage his money, and of course, not to forget to take care of your own self so that you can deal with, unless you are happy, you cannot deal with the patients happily. So, good medicine will be the cornerstone, but also good and appropriate behavior with the patient, convincing power, communication, medical profession. Communication skills are important in every profession, but more so in the medical profession, where you see 100-150 patients a day, and you have to satisfy them in about 5 minutes by explaining them whatever disease they have. Patients to deal with the diverse kind of patients we see, and also ability to deal with untoward incidents because these are becoming more common now. So with the change scenario today, we probably have to follow the same points of professionalism like in other profession. For example, put customer satisfaction first. Expertise should become your specialty. Whatever you do, be an expert in that. Do more than expected. Communicate very effectively. Share your knowledge. And like it was said, keep a smile on your face and the right attitude in your heart. Then there are professional ethics, which is a part of being a medical professional, and sadly this is being ignored more and more. The HCI has a huge list of medical ethics that we must follow, and this list deals with a lot of issues like advertising, commissions, gifts, the running of medical shops by doctors, etc. Some of these do seem hypocritical or old-fashioned because the ground reality is very different. The ground reality is that in MBAs you already have courses on healthcare marketing, The ground reality is that the corporate hospitals are exempt from these guidelines because they are not individual doctors, they are companies, so they can do advertising. And in the face of all this, probably it may be a time to modify some of these guidelines. But some medical ethics will always stand the test of time and can never be changed. For example, respect for patient autonomy. Patient has the right to refuse treatment or choose what treatment he wants. Beneficence, that is to act in the best interest of the patient. Non-maleficence, which is the bedrock of medical ethics, that first of all do no harm to the patient. Just distribution of health resources, especially in a country like ours, with fairness and equality. Respect for patient dignity, truthfulness and honesty. These values will never get outdated, will never get out of fashion, and these are part of being a good medical professional, that we must remember all these medical ethics. Medical legal issues are a very real emerging threat, but sadly in India the legal process happens after the patient is already stormed your premises, violence, adverse media publicity, defamation, so the damage to the doctor's reputation in practice has already been done. In the face of all this, we all have to learn damage control and also involve in medical groups and medical indemnity insurance, etc., so that we can handle the situation in a manner that it does not lead to much damage for us. This was an article published in Archives of Internal Medicine, and they had collected some court cases, and the reasons for medical violence in court cases were the doctors perceived that the patients perceived that the doctor was unavailable for treatment, or the doctor did not take into account the patient and family concerns. Most important were poor delivery of information, poor communication, and this is something we must all remember, that in more than half of the cases of court case or violence, it is another health professional who has actually suggested mal-occurrence, and this speaks of very poor professionalism. Any medical professional who ill speaks about another medical professional must really think inwards. So to avoid these kind of problems, we must remember good communication, because doctors who can't communicate well are more likely to end up in court. So to conclude, the doctor's focus is more on keeping up with rapid advances in technology, but we must remember that patient satisfaction comes primarily from a sense of being heard and understood and having a sense of fair play. And medicine involves both the science as well as the art of medical practice, so we must focus on both. And place renewed emphasis to enduring qualities of the medical profession, that is curing the patient. If we can't cure, then we care for the patient. If we can't do any of these, communicate and let the patient know about his condition. And also bringing new aspects that recognize the extended responsibilities of doctors. But despite all these extended responsibilities, patients are the practice. Everything else is just paperwork. And satisfied patients and honest patient education field is the best marketing tool that we have at our disposal. When it comes to future of medical practice, we all hear today that corporates are here to gobble up all the doctors, corporates are coming into small towns and cities, private companies have found medical healthcare business to be a very lucrative profession, and many of the big companies and industrial houses are opening hospitals in the big metropolitan cities as well as in small towns. The good thing is that healthcare is a growing field in India, unlike industrialized countries. Private health expenditure has been growing at 12.5% per year, which is a very good growth rate. And for each 1% increase in the earning, there is a 1.47% increase in health spending. So there is ample scope for all of us to grow. But with the changing society, changing technology and practice patterns, the way doctors practice medicine is also changing. In the healthcare market, there are lots of jobs. There are good salaries and perks offered for doctors, yet most of these jobs do not offer good job satisfaction. And at the same time, for hospitals and established doctors, it is becoming increasingly difficult to hire new doctors. The problem is that the practicing medicine has become very complex. There are too many players. There are industry, marketing, insurance, regulations, litigation, etc. And therefore, doctors now find there is an urge to merge so that they can handle all these problems collectively. This urge is there because by merging together, we will potentially have cost savings, increased purchasing power, ability to offer expanded services to the patients, and higher better management expertise. Also, we can improve the clinical quality because we can provide cross opinions under the same roof. And this is very attractive for the doctors that we can have improved lifestyle through vacation and on-call coverage sharing. And with the more advent of health insurance, we can negotiate better with these. Group practice is something we often talk about, but do not see very many successful examples in practice, but with the new medical graduates, there is an increasing hesitation to start a de novo practice or independently. So it is the need of the hour for medical profession to create independent facilities which doctors can use without stepping on each other's toes and egos. And these kind of group practices also provide more transparency so that the patient has greater faith. A big practice looks better, more variety looks better, it attracts more patients, and also the patients tend to have less doubts. But the main problem with the group practices is that often most of them fall by the wayside because of ego hassles among the group members. So we must remember that it is a common vision of what we can create together, and fear that practicing alone would be more difficult. That should make us stick together and focus less on faults, more on what is good with your group, and try to compete outside the group rather than within, so that your group practice can survive for much longer. So a group practice is not for achieving easy money with minimal investment and having more personal time, but for doing better quality work and to achieve a broader vision. But then again, what is wrong with a solo practice? A solo practice is very good. You take your own decisions, you decide your own time of working, you decide how you want to grow for the future. Whatever money you make is all yours. But the challenge for a solo practitioner is to provide similar kind of ambience, services, and amenities that the corporate hospitals or the large groups are providing. In the earlier days, we could have practices running in generation after generation, but now this kind of thing is becoming very difficult because first, not all children want to get into the medical profession, and even those that do don't always have it made because the patients don't trust them so easily. Practice buyout is something that is just starting in our country, but again, only corporates can afford to buy out practices, not individual doctors. We often hear all the time that corporate hospitals are here to come and corporate hospitals will probably eat up all our medical profession. We know that in India, many of these corporate professions are on large disposable incomes. We all know what are these kind of disposable incomes. And these hospitals provide doctors with work-life balance and good money. And in these hospitals, the counselors are more important than the doctors. Doctors are happy because they don't have any non-clinical responsibilities. But these hospitals work just like an industry. They will give the doctors targets which you must accomplish. If you do not follow these targets, you are out of the hospital. But in a country like ours, they are not a threat to efficiently run small units. If you have a small hospital, the key is to provide efficient services and good amenities. Mergers and acquisitions are now happening in the healthcare industry. There are large groups which are taking over individual practices, starting with chain of 100 hospitals or 200 hospitals all over India. This is the latest and fastest model. It has generated a lot of buzz, but there are a lot of myths associated. We think that if we merge with a large group, our billing will improve, our overheads will go down, our staff will be cut, our reimbursement will increase, and that higher price management is better management. But not all of this is true, and this will vary from practice to practice, and often we realize that after merging with the big group, our expenditure has actually gone, and the money that we take home is much less than before. At the end of the day, it is the financial matters which are the touchy affair in all of these practice models. Financial matters can be, remuneration can be either production-based or salary-based or group-based compensation or capital-based compensation. But these things need to be discussed beforehand before we join a corporate or a group or work as a salaried employee so that there are no issues later on. The one thing to remember is that charity is hugely underserved in India, and we will always have a lot of scope for having charitable services. This is also a good profession and a good employment for the doctors, but this sector has been monopolized by NGOs. It is now need for us to form our own charities so that we can deliver better services without having all the NGO expenditure involved in between. So to conclude, to use a cliche, we are living in exciting times. The point is we have today many choices in the way we practice medicine, but good training will remain the cornerstone. You cannot do anything further unless you have a good training. Choose whatever suits you because there is space for everyone in our diverse country. The thing with India is that you have all kinds of backgrounds, so everywhere from the 5-star corporate to the charitable organization will survive and flourish. Do not feel pressured because everybody is telling you that this is the trend and you must go this way, or that you must join a corporate within the next 5 years or otherwise you're finished. We do have space, enough space for everyone, and concentrate not just on medical education but on complete professional development. So to conclude, the future of medicine will involve a balance between the art of medicine and the science technology of medicine, and also deal with the business of medicine with imagination, ingenuity and a little love. Thank you.
Thank you very much.